A big thanks to DesignMyBeat.com for sponsoring this video. They have a huge selection of sample-based software instruments and drum and beat sample packs inspired by real artists like Martin Garrix, Hardwell, Skrillex, Tiesto, Calvin Harris, and more. Check out Tomorrowland 3, their new 40GB collection of 10,000 new instruments, drums, and sound effects. This huge contact library is designed to instantly give you the inspiration you need to compose and produce your next big hit. Check out the links in the video description below for more info. Hey everyone, this is MusicTechHelpGuy. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can take a vocal loop, chop it up, and convert it to an EXS24 sampler instrument so that you can use it as a playable instrument. Now, last week I put out a video demonstrating how you can take a single vocal sample, doing a bunch of sound design to it, and turn it into a playable instrument like a synth lead or a synth pad, something where each note is going to be the same sound, just pitch shifted up and down the keyboard. This is a little bit different because each note on the keyboard is going to be a different pitch. It's going to be a different part of the vocal loop. So let me give you a quick example of what I'm talking about. Down here, I've got my drum beat and my synths and bass, and up here in red, I have my vocal melody that's been converted to an EXS24 sampler instrument. So I've just come up with an 8-bar idea and looped it a few times. This isn't a complete musical example. This is more or less just a proof of concept. Okay, so let's start completely from scratch. I'm gonna mute this track altogether, and I've just got a beat here in D minor. So it's just a 808 style bass with some chords and drum loop. So what I'm going to do is in my loop library, I'm going to grab a vocal loop, and there's a whole bunch of these. If you click the vocals tab here, there's a whole bunch of different ones in different keys, male and female vocalists. The one I used for my example was this one called Carla Melody 16. So I'll just pull this in, and it's going to load this on a new audio track. You can do this with third-party loops. You can do it with Logic loops. You can do it with vocal loops that you sang in yourself. You just need a few bars or more of a vocal loop. Now, this is a pretty short example. It's only 4 bars long, so it's not going to give us too many playable notes. But again, it's a proof of concept. You could use a much longer loop for this if you like.
La 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 la. Oh yeah.
Okay, so the first thing to note is that the loop is actually in the key of C. One of the things that's weird about Logic's loop browser is it doesn't necessarily tell you whether it's C major or minor, but just from listening to this, I can hear that it's C minor. So the problem is this loop is 2 half steps lower than my musical example.
La 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 la. Oh yeah.
So what I'm going to do is add the vocal transformer plugin to this track, and I'm going to pull the pitch up by 2 semitones or 2 half steps. So that's going to take it from C up to D to match the key of my song.
La 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 la. Oh yeah.
Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to bounce in place this loop with that vocal transformer plugin with the pitch shift on it. So I'm just going to select the track, and then I'll press Control B to bounce in place. I'll make sure that bypass effects plugins is not selected, and then just hit OK. And this will render this down as a new audio file, as a new region with the pitch shift printed in. So I can get rid of the original loop here.
La 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 la. Oh yeah.
Now, one of the really cool features of Logic is that you can actually convert any audio region into an EXS24 sampler instrument. simply by right-clicking on it, going down to Convert, and then select Convert to New Sampler Track. Or you can press Control E. Now, it's going to ask you, do you want to create a new sampler track from regions or from transient markers? Now, if you choose regions, it's just going to put this whole loop on one key. We don't want that. What we want it to do is we want it to cut up the loop based on the transients that are in the loop. You can also choose to create one-shot zones. For a vocal melody, I'm going to turn this off. A one-shot is used for drums, where you want to press a key and you want to hear the entire length of the sample regardless of how long you hold the key down. For the vocal samples, I don't want that because I'm going to want some of them to be longer and some to be shorter. Then what you can do is set a trigger note range. This is the starting key and the ending key of the range across the keyboard that this vocal loop is going to be mapped. So it's going to be cutting it up into a bunch of pieces and throwing it across the keyboard. So it says, creates an EXS24 instrument with 11 zones of a maximum of 92. So that's 92 notes between these two from 11 selected transient markers. So it's only cutting up this loop into 11 pieces, into 11 slices, if you will. If you used a longer loop, you'd have a lot more to work with. So I'll just hit OK. You can delete the MIDI region that shows up. That's just showing you how the vocal loop was cut up. And you can also delete the loop now because you don't need it anymore. So now you can arm this track for recording, to play along with your MIDI keyboard, and try to come up with some cool combinations of these different vocal chops. So what I did in the example in the beginning of the video is I went through and tried combining different notes to get some of these different vocal chops to sound good with each other. Again, I only have 11 notes to pick from here, but this is what I came up with. If you're having trouble chopping up the vocal properly using the transients option, you can try manually chopping up the vocal sample at the parts that you like using the scissors tool, and then just use the regions option instead of the transients option when you convert this to a sampler instrument. So the point here is not for this to sound like really like a singer anymore. It's got the vocal tone, but we're using it more like a synthesizer. So there's a few things that you can do to it to enhance it, make it sound maybe a bit more robotic, and make it sound a little bit more like a synthesizer. The first thing you can do is you can add some sort of pitch correction plugin. I'm using Auto-Tune EFX, but you could also use Logic's built-in pitch correction tool. I've just set the input type to soprano and set the key to D minor, which is the key of the song, so she'll only be tuned to notes within the D minor scale. I've got the retune speed set at 0 and the humanize feature up just a little bit. So basically with the retune speed all the way down, it's going to immediately pitch correct the note. Now, again, if you don't want to use a third-party plugin, you can also try out Logic's built-in pitch correction plugin. You set what notes you want in the scale, set the vocal range, you can pull down the response time, which is a lot like the retune speed, and this will automatically tune the notes. It's sort of like a built-in auto-tune in Logic. You can also try using the vocal transformer plugin here if you want to play around with the formants of the vocals. So if you pull this up, you'll sort of get what I call the chipmunk sound. So if you're intentionally trying to go for like a formant shifted sound, you can do that as well. Lastly, I've got the channel EQ up here, and I've more or less bandpassed the signal. I've cut almost all of the lows and a lot of the highs to give it sort of a filtered effect. I also have two sends here. Bus 1 is going over to an aux track with some pretty heavy reverb, and then bus 2 is going over to an aux track with the stereo delay plugin. you're interested in learning more about the Auto-Tune EFX plugin, I actually did a short 10-part course over at ask.video and macprovideo.com if you want to check that out. All right, guys, so that pretty much wraps this up. That's how you can take a vocal loop and chop it up and turn it into an EXS24 sampler instrument so that you can play around with the different vocal chops and create a cool synthesized sounding vocal melody. Again, I only used a very short vocal loop. You can try multiple different loops and combine them together to build out a vocal synth melody that has a bit more variation in it rather than just being an 8-bar loop like I have here. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. You can also check me out on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and if you'd like to make a monthly contribution to the channel, you can also check me out at patreon.com/MusicTechHelpGuy. Thanks for the support, and thanks for watching.